Hi everyone, welcome back with another video where revenge is scary but Bella knows how to handle it. So without wasting time, let's start the story.
The first thing I heard was my brother laughing. Not a nervous laugh. Not confusion. A slow, satisfied laugh. Like he had already won. My name is Clara Bennett, I'm 34. Have you ever watched your own family decide you're guilty before you even speak? My older brother, Daniel, stood in the middle of our living room holding a stack of printed bank statements like trophies. The afternoon sun cut through the blinds behind him, turning the dust in the air into thin golden lines. Our aunt sat on the couch, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue that looked perfectly dry. Look at her, Daniel said, smirking. She'd betray her own family for cash. The word betray hung in the room like smoke. My uncle pointed straight at the front door. Get out of this house, he shouted. You're a disgrace. The sentence landed harder than the accusation. Someone dragged my suitcase across the floor. Someone else opened the door. No one asked a question. No one even looked uncertain. The hallway mirror caught my reflection as I stepped outside. For a moment, it felt like the house itself had already erased me. And that was the strange part. Because I knew something they didn't. Truth doesn't shout. It waits. Quietly. Truth doesn't shout. It waits. Quietly. The porch light flickered above me as the door slammed shut behind my back. The sound echoed down the street like something final. My suitcase sat beside me, tilted slightly, the zipper half open as if even it wasn't sure where it belonged. Inside the house I could still hear voices through the walls. Daniel laughing again. My aunt whispering something soft and dramatic. Poor boy, trusting his own sister. Their words floated through the door like smoke under a crack. I picked up my suitcase without knocking again. The evening air smelled faintly like rain and cut grass. The same smell from every summer night of my childhood. Funny how places don't change when people do. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. A message from Daniel. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Harder. Like I had started this. Like the numbers in his business account had simply appeared out of thin air. I reached the corner of the street and looked back at the house. The windows glowed warm and yellow, the same way they always had during holidays and birthdays. For a moment the silence felt heavier than the accusation. Because Daniel believed I had nothing left. No home.no family.no proof. And that was the mistake he didn't know he had already made. 5 days later, the rain tapped softly against the window of my tiny apartment. The place smelled like cheap coffee and fresh paint, the kind landlords used to hide old problems. My suitcase sat unopened in the corner, still leaning against the wall like it was waiting for permission to stay. The chair across from me looked like it was expecting someone. But no one came. I stared at my laptop screen while the coffee cooled in my hands. A single folder sat on the desktop. Ledger_. Daniel never noticed when I stayed late at his office. He never noticed when I organized files, fixed spreadsheets, or backed up systems after his staff left. He only noticed money. My phone buzzed again. A message from my cousin Mark. Family dinner tonight. You know your brother's really struggling. Struggling. I almost laughed. Another message appeared seconds later. My aunt. You should apologize, Clara. Pride ruins families. I closed my eyes for a moment and listened to the rain. Then I clicked the folder open. Rows of transactions filled the screen. Transfers. Shell accounts. Quiet little theft stretching back 2 years. Daniel hadn't been robbed. Daniel had been hiding something. And somehow, he thought I didn't know where the rest of the records were. The rain outside softened into a steady whisper, like the city itself was leaning closer to listen. My laptop screen reflected faintly in the dark window, turning the room into two versions of the same silence. On the screen, the numbers told a patient story. Small withdrawals. Strange vendor names. Accounts that didn't belong to any real supplier. Daniel had been careful. Very careful. Just not careful enough. My fingers hovered above the keyboard while the old desk creaked under my elbows. The wood felt rough against my skin, grounding me in a moment that suddenly felt heavier than the accusations from 5 days ago. Another buzz from my phone. This time it was a voicemail. My uncle's voice filled the quiet room. Clara, listen. Families fight. But you don't go ruining people over misunderstandings. Pause. Then softer. Daniel's reputation matters. Reputation. The word echoed strangely in the empty apartment. I leaned back and opened another file hidden inside the backup folder. Security camera logs from Daniel's office. Dates, times, footage markers. Daniel had always told everyone the cameras were broken. But broken cameras don't quietly record everything. And tonight, for the first time since they threw me out, I pressed play. And tonight, for the first time since they threw me out, I pressed play. The screen flickered for a moment before the footage appeared. Grainy. Silent. The office hallway after midnight. The timestamp glowed in the corner like a quiet witness. There he was. Daniel. He unlocked his office door, stepped inside and shut it behind him. No rush. No fear. Just the calm confidence of someone who believed no one would ever look. I watched the next clip. Daniel again, this time carrying a small envelope. He opened the company safe, slipped something inside, then walked straight to the computer on his desk. A few clicks. A transfer. Even through the low-quality camera, I could see the smirk on his face. The same smirk he wore in the living room when he called me a thief. My phone buzzed again on the table. A text from my aunt. Daniel says you've been quiet. Silence makes you look guilty. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then another notification appeared. An automated email from the business server I had quietly synced years ago. New transaction alert. Daniel had just moved another large amount. I leaned forward slowly. But this time, he had sent the money somewhere very interesting. And he clearly didn't realize who owned that account. For a moment I just stared at the screen. The routing number. The account holder name. My name. Daniel had opened the account months ago when the company expanded its payment system. He asked me to handle the paperwork because, as he once joked, you're the only one in this family who reads contracts. Apparently, I was also the only one who remembered them. The transfer sat there in black and white. $48,000. Fresh. Time stamped 15 minutes ago. The rain had stopped outside, leaving the city strangely quiet. Even the old refrigerator in the corner seemed to pause its humming, like the room itself was holding its breath. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Clara. If this is about earlier, we can talk. A second message followed immediately. You know how families are. Things get emotional. Emotional. Like the suitcase sliding across the floor. Like my uncle shouting at the door. Another message appeared, this time from my aunt. Sweetheart, your brother is worried. Just come home and we'll fix this. Fix this. I looked back at the transfer confirmation. Then I opened the folder I had already prepared. Video clips. Transaction logs. Signed authorization forms. All neatly labeled. All ready to send. And suddenly I understood something very clearly. Daniel wasn't worried about the money. He was terrified of the truth. Daniel wasn't worried about the money. He was terrified of the truth. My phone began buzzing faster now, vibrating across the small kitchen table like it was trying to escape the conversation. Daniel again. Then my uncle. Then my aunt. 3 names lighting up the screen that had thrown me out 5 nights earlier. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my email and attached the files one by one. The videos first. Then the transaction history. Then the scanned forms Daniel had signed when he made me the authorized administrator of that payment account. His signature looked strangely confident now. The subject line took me longer. Not because I didn't know what to write. Because I wanted the truth to sound calm. Simple. Undeniable. I finally typed. Financial irregularities. Daniel Bennett Construction. The recipient field already held 3 addresses. A regional business reporter. The state licensing board. And Daniel's largest corporate client. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail from Daniel. His voice sounded smaller now. Clara, please don't send that file. Outside my window, a delivery truck rumbled past, shaking the glass slightly. The reflection of my laptop flickered again in the dark pane. For a second I saw myself the way the hallway mirror had 5 nights ago. Only this time, I wasn't the one being erased. My finger hovered over send. For a moment the room felt very still. The laptop glow reflected faintly in the dark window, and behind it I could see my own face staring back at me. Calm, tired, but no longer confused. 5 days ago they had already written my story. The greedy sister, the family disgrace, the thief. All without asking a single question. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Then another message. My aunt. Then my uncle. The same people who watched my suitcase slide across the porch like I didn't belong in my own childhood home. I finally pressed send. The email disappeared from my outbox with a quiet little sound. Soft. Almost polite. 20 minutes later my phone exploded with notifications. News alerts. Business forums. A short article from the regional reporter. Local contractor under investigation for financial fraud. Daniel's company name sat there in bold letters. Below it, a still image pulled directly from the security footage. His smirk frozen forever. My phone rang again. Daniel. I didn't answer. Instead I sent one reply to the family group chat. 2 words. Check the news. Then I closed the laptop, finished my coffee, and watched the quiet apartment window slowly turn into a mirror. For the first time in days, the reflection looking back at me felt like someone whole again.